Recently, I made the switch from a Roach Ravager-based army in Zerg vs Terran to an army that is based around Mutalisks and Banelings instead, and so far, it's actually been going rather well. My win rates have gone up significantly, and in this video, I want to be discussing the issues that I've been facing and what I still need to be working on as well, and what I've noticed when switching over from Roach Ravager-based armies to based armies, or armies rather, that are based around Mutalisks, Zerglings and Banelings as well. Now, I have already made a video explaining exactly what the build is all about. I'll leave that down below, but today we're going to be talking a little bit more about strategy as well as all of the issues that I've been facing. Now, one of the things to keep in mind whenever you are changing up your strategies in Zerg vs Terran or Zerg vs Protoss, or really any of the matchups in StarCraft 2 for that matter, but in particular Zerg vs Terran is pretty rough. I'll explain why that is in just a bit. But one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that when you make like a significant change in your strategy, it's gonna take a while before you're gonna get reasonable again. And you guys may be aware, I play this game a lot, and it's been taking me a couple of weeks, and I feel like I finally reached a point where I am reasonable with playing Mutaling Bane, but there are still countless things that do still need work as well. Now, the reason, first and foremost, let me cover that. The reason why making switches to Zerg vs Terran is so very difficult is because it's a matchup that is very much so reliant on the amount of workers that you can get away with as Zerg. If you're making a big economy and you're going to be able to get those drones very early on into the game, the eventual army that you're going to be building is going to be much bigger as well. And because like, you always need to maximize the amount of workers that you're getting if you want to be surviving and winning in the middle part of the game. It is like walking a very, very thin line. If you make one little screw up, obviously the aggression from the Terran is gonna do a lot of damage, and therefore, you know, you needed a little bit more army. But if you make too much army, the Terran player is just simply gonna be like, alright, I'll just make another command center and go from there. So like, you're always walking on a threat whenever you are playing Zerg vs Terran, and I found that to be rather difficult. But I feel like we're finally at a point where I can comfortably talk about it and explain to you what has been going well, what improvements I've been making, and what I still need to be working on too. So one of the things that I've noticed, in particular when I first started playing this strategy, is that you need to have very solid control on your queens. If you have proper creep spread, you've got solid queen injects, so you got enough queens to begin with as well. And there we do have Avatar's voice, by the way. I've been playing with him on. It's pretty fun. But if you make enough queens and you're controlling them good enough, generally speaking, the game is gonna get significantly easier. That is one of the main things that I've noticed. You really need to have enough queens. Now, how many queens is the accurate number? I haven't quite found that out yet. And by watching a lot of the pro gamers as well, it seems like most pros get anywhere from like 3 to 4 queens, up to some guys even going up to like 10 to 12 queens. And I've really been leaning towards the higher amount here. I believe in total in this game, I don't know exactly how many I make, but I basically start making non-stop army at one point in the game, and I've been judging queens as an army unit as well. So as you may be aware, right, the main goal for us here is to try and stay alive for as long as possible to establish that big economy, and once we do, that is really where we start to overwhelm our Terran opponents, and eventually we're gonna get up to a hive as well. Right now, obviously I've been trying to work on that, but it's been rough. The early game survival has become significantly easier ever since I started going for more queens. So for anyone, you know, having issues with defending Zerg vs Terran early game, I would highly recommend considering making a bunch of extra queens, because they are definitely extremely powerful. So that's the first thing. Now, you may have noticed in this particular match, by the way, my opponent did manage to delay my third there for quite a little while. Mostly a miscontrol on my end. I think I could have just sent the worker a little bit later and probably gone for a couple more workers instead. I've done that anyway in this particular match, but yeah, a minor little mistake. Anyway, so here's the overall scout. Now, I'm trying to figure out what the build is that my opponent is going for, and this right here is where I feel like I've been far more on point. So the one thing that I realized when I first started playing this style is that I just simply didn't have enough workers by the time that my opponent was hitting me in the face with the big clump of army. So what I'm talking about right here is the super standard style from Terran that pretty much all of them are going for, and that is going to be the double medevac, you know, with 8 marines each in there. Very common strategy, and that's the one thing that you know, is probably the most standard right now in Zerg vs. Terran, but I always felt like I didn't really have enough economy to really justify that. So if you pause right here for just a second, because this is the point where I really start making that army. As you may be aware, I'm going to be switching towards heavy Zergling play. I'm going to be adding on the queens as well. But if you look at the income tab right now, I feel like I probably could squeeze out a couple more workers, either before this point already, by just simply macroing more on point and just getting that economy more optimized. But I feel like 43 versus 37 harvest is actually pretty reasonable. Now you will notice obviously that my opponent does have more income. I mean, the numbers are simply higher. But 43, I think I could maybe try and squeeze it out to maybe up to like 48 or so. But at the very least, this is reasonable. A couple of weeks ago, when I would check the numbers right around this time, I would usually be hovering around, I don't know, like 40, not quite 40 yet, like 38, 39-ish. And while it may seem very insignificant, right? For the next couple of minutes, or, you know, until this aggression is done from my opponent, I'm not gonna be making any more drones. And I actually got 2 more finishing up. So it's a pretty solid amount what I have right now. The amount of workers you need at this point in the game before you start making army is hugely important. It completely dictates how many units you're actually going to be building later on into this game, and how many queens you're going to be building, and how many Zerglings you're going to be using here for the early game defense as well. So that's one of the first things that I've been working on, and that I feel like I can improve upon even more by just being more on point with my economy. And notice, we're all talking like pre-5 minute mark here, right? This is something that pretty much everyone should be able to master, but it's not that easy. Anyhow, so that's the very first thing. Secondly, one of the additions I've been making to defend the early game aggression even more is a couple of spore crawlers. So in the past, I would only really get spore crawlers in Zerg vs. Protoss the most, but I found out that they are extremely helpful for dealing with the for the Terran aggression. So in that particular instance, what I've been changing up is just simply getting 1 or 2 of them to, you know, the most likely location where my opponent is probably going to be pushing in from. And in this particular instance, that turns out to be the 3rd base as well as the natural, so I get 1 in each of those places. And I'm trying to figure out how many units I need to make. So here's my opponent, right? He does indeed start dropping at my 3rd base right now. I am still making Zerglings, and I wonder if this 20 links that I just made right there on the production tab is actually a little bit too much. There's a very fine line that I discussed earlier, right? Between like making a solid amount of workers and between making a solid amount of army. And I feel like with the queens that I have right now, I got 5 queens here attacking. I think I've got, yeah, 1 more right here, and probably should be having 1 more incoming here in the natural soon as well. I think I have enough here to deal with any kind of additional medevac aggression. So honestly, these 18 Zerglings that I'm making right now is probably a little bit too greedy. In particular, because I haven't really seen that my opponent is going for a 3rd base yet. And for the moment, he's really not going to have anything else on this side of the map to begin with anyway, right? So I think I probably could get away with a couple more workers here instead of those 18 links. Either way, I also push, you know, pretty aggressively here off creep. In this instance, my opponent is going to be loading up into the medevacs immediately, but that could be an issue as well. I don't want to go all too deep. Now in this match, I am actually trying out, and I am going to drone up by the way once again right now, which I think is a solid timing. But anyway, one of the things I've been trying out as well is that while that aggression is going on, I want to be putting up my lair as well as my baneling nest. One of the issues I've been running into is that while I may be able to defend the double medevac harass early on, or the triple medevac harass that is very common, I may just simply not have my tech up fast enough. So I've been trying to, you know, increase the speed at which I am getting my 3rd base. Or, not, sorry, not my 3rd base, rather, but my lair and my baneling nest. And I've been trying to increase the speed that I'm really getting those at as well while the aggression is going on. And I feel like that has been a pretty nice addition as well, as it will allow me to get the upgrades a little bit faster, so that it's +2/+2 and baneling speed, as well as the spire. Now, speaking of which, I've been slowing down the speed and the amount of Mutalisks that I've been getting. One of the issues that I've been running into, in particular when you go up against Terran players like the one that I am facing right now, like look at the minimap, right? I notice right here that there's no 3rd base up yet, and my opponent is not, like he is gonna get it, I believe, like he's got it already finished up actually, but he's not really focusing on that much economy here for the time being. But anyway, like one of the things I've noticed is that if I focus a little bit too much on the Mutalisk count, I will probably just end up dying. And what that means in a practical matter is that I've been going much more heavily into the upgrades and blind banelings, and going on the baneling speed upgrade even before starting up the spire, just in case. Now, I may start up the spire, but one of the things I've also changed up is that I'm not quite making, I'm not quite like waiting and saving up all of my gas and whatnot to try and make a big amount of mutas, because many of the games I just end up losing in that exact scenario. Now, my opponent is indeed going to start pushing. Notice the creep threat here, extremely important. I've been trying to improve on that quite a little bit. And then on top of that, obviously, the Zergling Baneling micro as well. Also something that you need to try and get controlling a little bit better. But I feel like I've been playing this rather well at this point in the game. Now, this is right here where I have been focusing most of my attention when I am playing Zerg versus Terran, the first 8 minutes of the match. Now, I want to emphasize this as I feel like a lot of people are really focused on the later stages of the game, and with Roach Ravager based armies, that's totally legitimate, but honestly, like, most of the mistakes you're gonna make in any match of StarCraft 2 are gonna be in, like, the first 8 or so minutes. And right now, since I've been able to establish that economy, as you can see, I get 66 workers. I'm gonna be adding on a couple more, I believe, as well as that fort base, macro hatchery, and all that. Everything past the 8-minute mark, I feel like is sort of like undiscovered terrain for me right now. I mean, I obviously have a pretty solid baseline of what I'm working with, but that mostly comes from my experience playing all of the other matchups and just realizing how powerful Ultralisks are. But things like the fort base timing, as well as like the hive timing, as well as like everything else, like after this point, I have not completely finalized just yet, and obviously when I do, I will most definitely give you an update on what the ideal times are. But I feel like my progress has primarily been in the first couple of minutes of the game, and because of that, my win rates have really started skyrocketing. So notice, right, only right now is when I'm starting to get the Mutalisks, and I even then also still add on a whole lot of like Banelings too, just for safety purposes, even though I could have squeezed out a couple more Mutalisks if I ideally absolutely wanted to. Anyway, the reason, by the way, why I used to save up Mutalisks for a while and why I tried saving up as much gas as possible is exactly this right here. I know that a lot of the Terran players are skipping out on the missile turrets, and that's exactly what is happening in this instance as well. I'm going to be able to pick up quite a couple of SCVs. It's not really all that significant. Obviously, when you save up a lot of the gas and a lot of the minerals and a lot of the larvae, you're going to be able to, like, make 20 Mutalisks all at once. That is something that we used to do way back in Wings of Liberty. That is not what you want to do anymore in the Legacy of the Void terms, just because it really isn't all that great. Now, I am getting up my hive right now, and I feel like that's late. I feel like right now, going for the infestation pit, it's pretty late. As you may notice, I am, obviously having the win condition to tack up towards, Ultralisk here eventually, and to make sure that I got, like, a big economy out and all that. Like, that is kind of my win condition that I came up with. But, like, the way you really get the advantage is by getting the upgrades and the amount of economy, right? And I'm kind of late as far as my hive upgrades go, as well as, like, my kindness plating, adrenal glands, all those kinds of things. And I feel like that is something that I need to be working on as well. So primarily what it comes down to is everything past, like, the 8-minute mark, I still need to be improving upon. As far as control of the army goes, I feel like that has been going a little bit better. Primarily what my hotkey setup has been like is just simply using the Mutalisk in a separate hotkey group, obviously, to nuke down any of the Metafex. So as you can see right here, I'm trying to target fire down all of the Metafex while having the Zerglings and Banelings on another one as well, to try and move on across the map. And that's been going reasonably well. I think one of the additions I could quite easily make, nice little bit of splitting there by my opponent actually, but one of the things I could quite easily make and add to this strategy, I suppose, is to potentially, like, hotkey my Banelings individually as well. I've been trying that out a bunch, so that would be like Zerglings and Banelings on hotkey 2, and then Banelings separately on hotkey 3 as well, which means I can A-move with the Lings and Banes, and then manually move in the Banes too. I think that probably would be something I want to try out a little bit more to figure out if it's, if it's gonna be something that I can work with in the long run, and if I'd like that better than what I've currently got. But as you can see, like, only just right now, like, my hive is about halfway done. Not quite happy with this yet. And while you may notice here, right, and that is a pretty important thing to try and keep in mind as well. Like, for some people that watch the live stream, they're like, well, he won the game, why is he being negative about himself? It's because I'm not focusing on, like, one individual game. My goal in StarCraft has never been to, like, win a ladder match. Sure, I like winning more than losing, don't get me wrong, but I want to improve, right? I want to improve in the long run, and the only way that's gonna happen is if I play a lot of games. And while, I was pretty happy with my performance in this game, in particular in, like, the first 8 or so minutes, I feel like there are quite a couple of things that I can work on still that will make me a stronger player once more. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Obviously a very heavy strategic kind of talk. Let me know down below if you like watching this, because if you do, I am definitely more than willing to talk about this more often, because I love talking nerdy stuff like Zerg and like, you know, high-level strategy. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you haven't already, hit that like button. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. And other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile. And I'll see you in the next one. And also, by the way, while you're at it, go ahead and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Links are down below. Alright? Alright. See ya.